Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer, his name is Andy Rossi, and this is the Evolution of Movies show. Andy, how have you been? It's been a year since I've seen you based on the way this podcast works.
Yeah, you're going back in time. You look younger than the last time I saw you.
Don't you say that. You're all clean shaven, looking like a little baby here today.
Yeah.
But we have a movie today to talk about, Andy, and it was a good one. It was one that was very well talked about, one that everyone was a buzz about back when it came out. But before we get into it, as always, Andy, we got a guest.
Oh, nice.
And this guest is not a threat, not a double threat, not a triple threat, but a quadruple threat. She is a boxer, model, actress, and marketer. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause to Nikki Hru. Nikki, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you doing, Jack?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I'm excited to chat about this movie with you. And by the way, anyone who doesn't know, we met. I always like to chat about how we met. We met because you were throwing fists around in a boxing ring at Influencer Fight League 2. Also saw you at Influencer Fight League 3. One of these days, I'm trying to pry a little information about Influencer Fight League 4, but I won't press too much on the air there. But how have you been since you were knocking people out? Let me not knock them out, but you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, let's not. I didn't knock her out. I just made her nose sore for a few days.
Nice.
But to be fair, I was pretty impressed with myself. 59 pounds is it's a big weight difference.
It is a big weight difference, but you held your own.
No, but I've been great. I've been keeping up with Influencer Fight League still. I'm hoping to get back into the ring.
Hoping
we'll see.
Put that undefeated streak on the line.
Granted, I've only fought once.
It's okay.
But
listen, no one has been able to put you away. I mean,
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather, step aside. This is the undefeated streak we're talking about in boxing right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Just put me in the ring. I'm ready. Honestly, let's switch it up. MMA. I'll bring McGregor in. Let's make them all bow down.
Whoever wants it. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. Hopefully, Andy and I don't get punched in the face throughout the course of this. But this
Just
is
watch
a show
what
where
you say. It's fine.
Yeah, that's why we're behind the screens. This is the Evolution of Movies show, and for anyone who's new, what we do is we watch a movie and then we chat about it book club style, but we call it the Evolution of Movies because we always pick a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie we watched. So we started in 1980, went to 1981, 1982, now we're all the way up to 2006. Let me take you back to a time when movie theaters had hits like The Prestige, The Departed, and of course, She's the Man. But we aren't talking about any of those. We're talking about The Pursuit of Happyness, a movie IMDb describes as a struggling salesman takes custody of his son as he's poised to begin a life-changing professional career. Nikki, had you seen this movie before, and what were your thoughts going into it this time around?
So I've definitely seen this movie a couple of times, but not in a very long time up until recently. I remember loving it a lot as a kid. It's interesting how my perspective on it has changed because when it first came out, I was born in '96, so I was a little one when it first came out. But I remember identifying really hard with his son in the movie, specifically when he loses his little doll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
I have that in my notes. We will definitely be revisiting that moment.
But now watching it, I was hit a lot more with the adult struggle and finding a good partner and everything that I'm sure we'll talk about. But I was definitely excited to see specifically how my perspective has changed going from child to kind of an adult.
Right. Yeah. The stakes seemed a lot higher this time around watching it. Where before I was like, oh man, that's a tough day. Where now I'm like, oh my God.
like it must be hard to not have a place to sleep. And now I'm like, oh God, he's losing his apartment. He has to pay the house. I don't understand.
Because now I'm thinking about oh my gosh, what do you do? Where then I was like, oh man, why doesn't he just call his mom for money? But one of the things we like to do before we get started is we always like to do a little game where I'm going to have Andy Rossi here. Andy, you're going to try to guess the Rotten Tomatoes score for Pursuit of Happyness. And then Nikki, you have to guess whether or not the actual score is higher or lower than what Andy guesses. So Andy,
Yeah.
the Pursuit of Happyness.
Yeah,
Going
tough
up
one.
against She's the Man.
I was just gonna say, I don't think I remember She's the Man. Does she play soccer in that one? Pretend she's a boy
she
or
does,
something?
and it's such a good movie.
Is it Amanda Bynes?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I guess
In
I do
her prime.
remember then.
Don't act like you weren't a big fan.
Yeah,
Of
why didn't we do that movie? All right, so prime Amanda Bynes movie probably did pretty well. So this, let's see, to compare it to that. Pursuit of Happyness did very well. Will Smith, I believe, was nominated for an Oscar for this. So I think the movie scored well. I'm gonna go high here, Nikki. I'm gonna go 80.
80.
80 is actually kind of low compared to our higher up ones. Of course,
It was against
movies,
She's the Man,
Raiders of
though.
the Lost Ark, and I think Jurassic Park were in the 90s, Scorpion King in the 40s. To give you an idea.
It was much better than the Scorpion King.
It was marginally better than the Scorpion King.
Just like a little bit.
I could have used The Rock in it, though.
Yeah, the Rock in this movie would have been a very different movie, by the way. But Nikki, do you think the Rotten Tomatoes score is higher or lower than
Definitely
80?
higher.
Definitely
It's gotta
higher.
be higher.
Wow.
Well, the Rotten Tomatoes score for Pursuit of Happyness 2006 is 67%.
67.
And that blew my mind. In fact, I'm so worried that I must have that wrong because it's so low.
Was there another movie called Pursuit of Happyness that year?
I know. I'm wondering if this is going to be like not another teen movie. I actually looked up the Pursuit of Happyness version of that. Nope, hold it up again. 67% Pursuit of Happyness.
Oh, that's
What did the audience give it?
Shocked that it was that. I just closed the screen, Andy.
Come on, Jack, leave it up.
It is.
I bet
the
that's
audience
80.
had it. The audience has it at 87%.
There we
but
go.
okay.
critics clearly
Critics.
not ones to listen to.
Jerks.
67% blew me away. It was so low because the acting was just incredible here. I feel like the acting alone carried it through. I'm gonna be honest. When I watched this movie again, I don't know if I want the smoke. I was kind of bored. Watching it through again.
Really?
The acting was great. I get it. The story was amazing. I was touched. But I'll be honest, if I'd be lying if I told you I didn't get to the 40-minute mark and go, how much time is left in this movie? An
Just
hour
checking the little
20.
bar, like,
An
how
hour
much-
20.
Yeah.
I
I agree.
The performances were all incredible. But Nikki, one of the things you need to know about me is once we get past like the hour and a half mark, you're on borrowed time. And if you get to 2 hours, you better make every second count in a movie for old Jack.
Everything better. Hey, better.
Thor better be in it at some point.
Yeah. I better see Chris Hemsworth with a shirt on.
See, I'm coming from a theater background, so my attention span for shows is like 3 hours minimum.
Oh, so you're like, this movie just started. Something that shocked me about this, Andy, and I think you'll appreciate this. I remember when this movie came out, and I remember thinking, man, Will Smith is so old in this movie.
Oh no, how old is he?
He was 37.
Oh no.
It's not even
So
that
young.
old.
So young.
I was like, what? I thought he was, when I was younger, I would have projected him when this movie came out. I was like, oh man, he looks like he's 55.
Yeah. I would have guessed late 40s or something.
But no, he's very young in this movie. Well, I don't know how old the character is, but Will Smith himself was 37. So let's get into this movie, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's break it down. Let's talk about it. Actually, Andy, I forgot to ask, what were your thoughts on the movie going through it?
Yeah, I mean, I remembered it being like great acting performances, so I was very interested to going back to check it out to see, for one, how well it aged too, because Will Smith has done a lot of great movies after this as well. So I think this was this his second Academy nomination? Because I think Ali he got.
I'm trying to remember. Was Ali before this?
I believe so. Yeah, I'm not positive though, but I think so. Yeah. So I think this was like right around the time he was really killing it. So
this felt like, I remember this being kind of one of his like coming out as like a serious actor and not just the Fresh
Right.
Prince.
Yeah, it was like 9 pounds, I think, was around this time too, maybe a year or two after this. So
Yeah, he was on a stretch of like very serious movies, and then he was like, you know what, I'm just doing Hancock and
yeah,
iRobot and making some big bucks with
yeah,
some special effects.
yeah.
Well, some things you do for the art, some you do for the money. It just
Mhm.
depends.
Hancock was for the art. But let's get into this movie. Before we do, I always like to take a second to say thank you to everyone who is listening or watching, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Please do us a favor, hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, 5-star review. Let us know how you feel about these. Share with your friends. Hit us up on social media, whatever you want to do to let us know. We do it for the accolades and our ego. If you don't give us that, what are we doing this for?
Yeah.
Let's get into the movie. We start in 1981. We see the people of San Francisco go about their lives as Chris takes his kid to the preschool and tempers his birthday gift expectations before complaining about a bad word on the wall, as well as a misspelled word, before explaining that this is his story. He starts with the part titled Riding on the Bus and explains that he sells portable bone density scanners and it isn't going well. In fact, it's going really bad, and his wife is working doubles, tax bills are coming, and his car has a boot on it from unpaid tickets. Obviously, this makes things tense at home. On his way to work the next day, Chris sees a stockbroker driving a sports car, and he decides he needs to find a way to become one himself. Linda isn't happy about him wasting time thinking of this when he should be out selling scanners. Nikki, tell us about the characters that live in this world and the world that they inhabit.
Well, not to start off on a super serious note, but I do think it is a huge testament to how this cycle of poverty and this cycle of poor education, this cycle of not being able to get out starts. Because you have these parents who are in this rough situation, which we find out like bad business move, right?
Mm-hmm.
He happens. Um, but you
Yeah.
have these parents in a bad situation, and what really hits me is the misspelling of happiness and is the curse word on the wall, right? Because that, how old is his son in this movie? Like 5?
Like 5, yeah.
Yeah, little
Very
Jaden.
little. Yeah.
Lil Jaden.
He's adorable, but that's beside the point.
Jaden Christopher Sire Smith, as he's billed in the movie.
Yeah, I noticed that.
But to have that influence at such a young age, especially when we have so much importance on reading, on writing, and all of like the science and support we have for why words are so important, I think that's what really hit me in that, where I was just like, you're setting up this kid on a foundational level to not be as successful.
And to your point, it's so I was thinking through this as we think about the financial issues, like suffocating, because there's like nothing. Like it feels like bills are coming from every direction, and Andy, to kind of set the tone, something I loved is just that little bit while he's sitting on the couch and they have Reagan talking about the financial situation at the time, kind of setting the tone that like it's not just that he's like a loser that can't find money, but setting the tone that this is just a crushing economic time for everybody that's going through it. And I guess tell me about Andy, just kind of about setting the scene like that.
You know, and I want to ask both of you this. So it said 1981. Did you get a very like 80s feel? Like I felt like it could have used like a more of like an 80s-y soundtrack and maybe bad haircuts, you know,
Maybe
80s
someone
clothing. Yeah, some shoulder pad. I didn't really get the 80s in this. It almost felt like they were like, meh, it's fine. We'll get Reagan in there. That'll do it. But I kind of felt like I was watching a 2006 movie. Like it didn't really feel very 80s to me.
That's actually very true. I was going to say, even one of my notes for people who really remember the intro of the movie, it actually felt like a 90s movie intro where it had like the piano playing montage of the different scenes. It felt like something you would see at the beginning of a 90s movie, the way it really picked up. But Nikki, I want to talk about Linda a little bit here in this opening scene. Something that didn't occur to me when I was younger watching this, but definitely hit now, is it's very easy to villainize Linda in this movie. She doesn't come off as someone who's very likable, but I was trying to think now as an adult, yeah, I guess if I was working doubles while my partner was not pulling in any money and they were having all these kind of harebrained schemes and stuff like that, I could imagine getting like, we got to pay bills, we got to do stuff, fix this. Do you think Linda was a little thrown under the bus a little bit in this story?
Yes. The reason I take such a big breath is because, like, talking about villainizing, I caught myself doing that even as an adult watching it. I was just like, Linda, why are you, like, this is why it's important to have a good partner. This is why it's important to have someone who's on your team. Why aren't you supporting his dreams? And then it kind of hit me probably right as she, like, I guess spoiler, but right as she left. I'm not a mom.
Right.
Like, you already have the stress of being a mom and a wife and the primary breadwinner. Like, and having not only that, but we see her get pulled out of work. We see her, like, she's bringing in the money, but then her job has to take backseat to his. And it is this very, especially in the 80s when gender roles were so much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why that would make anyone break.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think she handled it the best way.
No, she definitely handled like a jerk in the end. But I guess as I was
Just
watching,
kind of went, peace.
yes, just like, you know what, I'm tapping out. I quit.
Like, I'm gonna go to New York. What's having a child? You have fun.
But up to this, I was like, you know what, I kind of get it. I'd be a little frustrated too. Like, I've been working
absolutely
for however long she said, and but that leads me to the villainization of Linda. Andy, I want to talk about one more thing here. You are a filmmaker. It says this was inspired by a true story.
Mm-hmm.
How close does this have to be to real life if it's inspired by? Does I mean, also, who wrote this? I mean, if this was Chris Gardner writing it, I mean, do we feel, I mean, if I wrote a story of my life and someone left me, trust me, they're not going to look good in my story.
That's a good point. And I looked it up a little bit afterwards to see who this guy was. And I did notice that his kid was actually not 5 years old during this time. He was like a baby. He was just like 1 year old or something.
Oh, no.
And I don't think there was a Linda. I think maybe that was fabricated a bit. So I'm not sure exactly how she fits in the real version.
Well, we move on, and we move on to the being stupid part of the story, where he leaves his scanner with a hippie while he interviews for the new job, and she steals it. This leads to the running part of the story. Chris finds the hippie with his scanner and chases her down, and he explains that he spent his life savings on these machines before realizing no one wanted them, telling us, the viewer, that maybe he doesn't have the best track record when it comes to business ideas, which makes the whole only 20 people were hired into the program, and of them, only one of them get the job thing seem a bit heavier. So he turns in his resume personally to Mr. Twistle, which sounds like a Christmas story name. But turns into Mr. Twistle, who was too busy to care. That doesn't stop Chris, though, as he pretends to need a ride so he can share a cab with Twistle. And while trying to sell him on his qualities, he really gets the job done with the Rubik's Cube. He ends up stiffing the cab driver and losing the machine and Linda, and he wonders about the pursuit part of Pursuit of Happyness. He gets a call, and they're going to interview him for the internship. So this is a rough and wild part of the story, Andy. Lots of highs, lots of lows.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about these scanners.
Good, because I want to talk about them.
So, one, these sound like a horrible idea. Why would a hospital need a portable bone? Like, who needs to be like, better bring my bone scanner? And two, at what point do you just cut your losses and get a job?
I'm so in the same thought as you. For one, I mean, I don't know much about the 80s medical field, but couldn't the hospital just buy one? Like, why do they have to? Why is he buying them separately and being a salesman in bone scanners? I don't know. That confused me. Yeah. They seem heavy. He had to carry them all over the place, so it seems like that's not good to just have your house all the time. And why did he leave it with the hippie girl? Like, if this is like his life savings, I would just bring it up with me. If anything, it's a talking piece. Oh, what is that? Oh, this is a bone scanner thing. You know, right. Why didn't he bring it with him? Is there a reason?
Try to sell it to the guy at Dean Witter.
Yeah, maybe Dean Witter needs one. Who knows?
Trust me, you need this. You need this bone density scanner in your household.
I mean, like I said, who needs a portable one? Like, hey, honey, before we go to the baseball game, make sure to grab the bone scanner.
Yeah, and we never really got like a backstory about why he bought all these. It was just like a picture of like all these. Life was great when we bought all these bone scanners, but he didn't specify, did he? Why he went all in on the bone scanner?
I mean, like I said, I'll give him credit. Okay, he had an idea. It didn't work. We all have bad ideas sometimes. But at what point are you like, dude, no one's buying these things. It's time to just like, I can't eat. I didn't sell one. Get a job. I guess it's a hard time. I don't know. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, you made a bad investment. Move on. Nikki,
he definitely seemed committed, which was interesting. I think what's interesting is your entire point about like, he could have brought it up and had it be a talking point. He could have brought it up and have it just be like, oh, this is this other thing I do. And I seem smart because it's medicine. Like, he could have done all that, but I think he viewed it as his failure. So having it, he felt like anyone who saw it was going to see that he was just failing.
I like that perspective. Because that is true. We do kind of carry the weight of our failures with things that we think we did bad on, even though no one else sees or cares.
Exactly. And which I think is fascinating. I mean, I think the entire movie is like a fascinating testament to human tenacity and human psychology. As far as leaving it with a hippie person, that was just dumb.
Yeah. She didn't even respond to him.
It's that she's on the street being like, give me money.
Yeah.
I shall sing. And he goes, here's this thing that it's not worth anything, but just stay here and watch it.
And here's $1.
Like, yeah, like, don't get me wrong. I'm from the South. I'm from Florida, so South. But my like blind trust in people is ridiculous. It's something I had to work on when I moved to Los Angeles. I wouldn't even leave my very expensive, unsellable bone density scanner with someone who's just singing on the street.
No. And if I was going to leave it, I think I would like try to treat it like it wasn't valuable anyways. Just like put it down near the door or something like, oh, this is just some stupid thing. But when you're like, please make sure no one takes this, it's like, oh, this must be worth something.
I just thought it was odd. She never communicated with him. Like, I would have moved on to a different person, been like, okay, she's not really responding to me. Maybe this person, and be like, oh yeah, man, I'll watch your bone scanner, no problem. Like, instead she was just like, no, I don't think she's really listening. Yeah. I'm like, that thing's gone.
I did want to talk about, this is where he talks about the pursuit of happiness. And I do think that this is, I think the main message of the story that I think is so cool. And Nikki, I want to get your kind of thoughts on this. Is he recognizes that you're free to pursue happiness, but happiness is separate than the pursuit of happiness. And this is where he's kind of realizing that happiness isn't part of the isn't written anywhere, but you do get to pursue it. And I think that's just a cool way of the separation is interesting to see them break that down.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to this underlying theme of hard work and perseverance, right? Because that's what pursuit is. You're persevering, you're going through the obstacles, the adversity, whatever it may be. So to paint this image of like happiness being just something that we can just have, I think is actually a really big problem in our society as a whole, because I think a lot of people think that we're entitled to just be happy, which don't get me wrong, I wish happiness on everyone.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
I am the hippie girl.
Yes.
I do like wish everyone to be happy, but it is something we have to work for, and it is something like whatever that may look like, whether it's finding stability, working through your traumas, childhood healing, whatever. Mm-hmm. All of those things, it's pursuing the betterment and pursuing that happiness. And I think that's just, I mean, obviously it's the name of the movie.
Right.
The way he pursues it through his tenacity is so cool to me.
Well, it's interesting as we're talking about it now, and as you speak to it, it is interesting that I am realizing that this movie, it's called The Pursuit of Happiness, so it should seem obvious, but he literally starts the movie by saying, "These people are happy. I want to be happy like them," and it's all the things he's doing to pursue that initial thought of wanting to be happy. This movie literally is The Pursuit of Happiness. Spelled, I can never remember if I'm supposed to spell it with the Y or the I when I'm writing the movie, by the way.
Oh, I hate it so much. I always think that people are going to be like, you don't know how to spell. It's like, well, that's the way it's spelled in the movie.
I didn't know. I promise.
So,
can I talk about one thing real quick? I just want to get both your thoughts on this as well. The Rubik's Cube. Is it really that impressive? I don't know. I felt like
at the time.
I mean,
I can't do it.
I can't either, but would you hire somebody and be impressed by them? Because they could do, I'd be like, oh, wow, you've had a lot of time. Practice this. Cool.
I wouldn't be like, the trick is you take the stickers off.
Oh, yeah. That I've done.
The trick is you take a Sharpie.
Yeah. You take the Sharpie.
That'd be great if that was like the deleted scene. Will Smith had a bunch of Sharpies in his pocket.
So the real lesson is always be prepared.
Yes.
But no, I think that's the only thing that really, like, actually calling back to your earlier thing of it being, is it very like 80s?
Yeah,
I think
that was
the only thing that really took me back, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I have only lived in a world with Rubik's cubes, and I remember growing up, like, the trick was how well you could learn the algorithm and how quickly you could do it. That was the trick for like my age group. That was what everyone was doing. And it was still impressive, even though we had a lifetime of Rubik's Cubes. So, I mean, I can imagine before people knew, oh, this is just math. And before you could just like be like little googly goobs and figure out what exactly you need to do.
Googly doobs. Okay.
Yeah. Google is fine. But
you don't call it that, Jack?
Yeah. Obviously.
All the cool kids are saying
it. No, do not take cool kid advice from me. But before being able to do that, I can 100% see why that would be a little like tick. You know what I mean? Why that would be why can you do this thing that smart people can't do?
Right. Too bad it doesn't work that way with like Halo today. Like, you're really good at Halo. You must be a stockbroker.
Like, your Call of Duty score is just like
right. Wow.
What
level are you at on Angry Birds? Crazy. So the next day, Chris confronts Linda about their son and demands that he lives with his father as Linda marches off. Chris, now alone, is getting kicked out of his apartment, and he has to paint it at the same time. While doing so, he gets arrested for unpaid parking tickets, and he has to spend the night in jail. The next day, he's out, and he runs all the way to Dean Witter, paint and hair and all. He walks through the trading floor, he gets to the meeting, and he explains his appearance and that he's smart, and somehow pulls it off. But now that he knows there's no pay, he's not sure what he's going to do. 6 months, no money, and if he wasn't the best in the group, it's going to be for nothing. And the only way he could make it is if he finds a way to sell all those blasted scanners. Linda tells Chris she's going to New York, and Chris explains he's an intern, and she says it's a step back for him. He accepts the internship and gets out of the apartment and moves to the Mission Inn. He plays basketball with his son, and that's when we get the big moment where he tells his son to not let anyone tell him he can't do something. This is kind of this is where a lot of movement happens in this part of the movie. That's why this part was called Running Still. By the way, Pursuit of Happiness, not a good way to break up the movie. You have like 3 parts happen in the beginning. I was like, oh, this is going to break the movie up for me. Easy peasy. And then running takes like an hour of the movie. Come on, guys.
He does a lot of running.
But I think that I think that's
how dare you not make the movie for me, who's going to review this like 14 years later, 16 years later.
Jerks.
Why didn't they have the foresight? That's really that's on them. No, but I think that's so I think it's so interesting, specifically with the running. It's just such a testament. Obviously, they did it for a reason, but it's just so exhausting, isn't it? Because we have this like bad thing happens, And then it's just, oh, now I get to sprint
Mm-hmm.
and continue sprinting. And
Yeah.
that's just like, it's just so exhausting. I think it really builds up to when, like, to the next part, when the running stops.
Well, and to your point, it's so like you kind of get that feeling that he's never ready and he never has everything he needs. And we've all had that feeling. We've had to like run into a meeting and we're not really ready. And like you can imagine him being sweaty and like not prepared for everything. And that's kind of his whole life is because he's got so much going on. He's got to run from one thing to the next.
And I'm sorry, I keep just saying like, can we talk about? But
Yeah,
like,
that's your catchphrase.
I feel bad for him the whole film. He's got a lot of stuff that goes on, but he's got time to stop and get some of the paint off his face, doesn't he? Like he
I don't
literally
think
just
so.
like runs right in. I'm like, just go in the bathroom for a second, get a little off the face. But I think the meeting goes great, being that he's all in the paint and like he does such a great job in that scene. But I was kind of thinking, I'm like, you have a little time, like real quick,
We
just
can
pop
stop
in there.
I do think his line though, where they're like, "What would you say about if a guy came in and I hired a guy with no shirt on? He must have great pants." I was
Yeah,
like, dude,
there's some good one-liners with him and especially Jaden Smith.
I was just like, dude, that is like, you got the job, man. I'd give him a job right there for that
Hmm.
line, especially a sales job. Like, come on, talk about a
Yeah.
rebuttal. You can't,
Look at the charisma.
yeah, you can't beat that.
Yeah,
Uh, I want to, eh, Andy, I want to go to you with this. It's the one of the biggest moments in the movie, I think, maybe the biggest movie, where he tells his son, like, "Hey, I wasn't very good at basketball. You'll probably never be good at basketball, so don't spend all your time playing basketball." And then he catches himself, and he's like, "No, no, 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 no. Never mind. I was wrong. Don't let anyone, even me, tell you you can't do
amazing.
something."
Yeah,
That is
if more parents did that, the better, right? You know, there's probably so many parents that tell their kids like, "No, you can't do that. Don't even do it." And he's like, "Oh." So like he's 5 years old. Let him play basketball.
I think it was so. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that dream, and I completely agree. I think more parents absolutely need to do that, but it's so evident how much other people telling us we'll fail is just a projection of their own like perceived failures or their own
Yeah.
shortcomings.
And it
It's
was
having him catch that, like, it meant the world to me the first time I saw it when I was a kid, and then I
mhm,
completely forgot about it, and then I saw it
right.
again, and it just hit the exact same way.
And it was definitely one of those things that, to your point, it wouldn't have hit as hard if he didn't catch himself. Like if they were just playing basketball and he's like, by the way, don't ever someone tell you can't do something. But the fact that he was like, he did it. And he's like, oh my God, I'm doing the thing that everyone does to me and I hate.
Hmm.
And so I can't like it for as good as I want to be, as much as I hate it, it can get me too. I need to not be that person. And that to me, that self-awareness was, I think, the coolest part of this whole scene. And to me, I always feel like that image of him leaning against the fence, I think, is one of the main images of this movie for a reason, because that was just a powerful thing.
Made him more likable too. I think if he wouldn't have caught himself, you would have been like the Will Smith's character, been like, he's kind of a jerk. But instead, you were kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, he has flaws, but he can catch himself. So, and does he do the joke right after this too? The
The
Jaden,
boat
yeah,
joke.
was
I
that
have that
there?
as a note, and I was going to ask you about it. Do you want to talk about it?
I love it. It's such a great joke. He's got great jokes the whole movie. He's so good in this, little Jaden.
Little
Yeah,
Jaden Christopher Sire.
yeah.
Smith.
Why'd he ditch the sire part?
Um, but the joke, it resonated with me because it was about how a guy was drowning and someone wanted to save him, and he said, "No, God's going to save me." It happens again. He dies, and God says, "You dummy! I sent you two boats." And it resonated to me because I was thinking, there's almost like a message. You wonder if maybe there are things that Christopher Gardner is getting boats that he should be taking instead of doing what he's doing and drowning. Is how I was looking into it. And it was almost wondering if there was almost a subtle, like, should he be taking opportunities instead of trying to focus on this thing? But maybe I'm reading too far
No,
into it.
I think you got a good point, because then I think he kind of does do that later. I think especially with like the 49ers game thing that he does coming up here, kind of just taking advantage of those situations.
Mm-hmm. As we continue on, Chris starts his internship, and he's told that he's going to be making cold calls, and he needs to sell a bunch to get the job. He continues to work hard, suck up, and secure money for the company, even when he's getting hit by cars and chasing down scanners and managing time with his son. He does it by not hanging up, not drinking water, and sneaking his way to the top of the list instead of working his way up from the bottom. He gets a meeting with the CEO, but misses it. And to apologize, he goes to the CEO's house and ends up going to a 49ers game. He makes a lot of friends and contacts, but no sales. Andy, there was a part that made me laugh really loud, and I don't know if I was supposed to. He gets hit by the car, and he's
That
all
part?
angry, and he goes, I'm in a competitive internship at Dean Witter. And it reminded me of Dumb and Dumb, where he's like, I'm a limo driver. And I don't know why, like if you're the guy driving the car, you'd be like, what
Who
are you
cares?
talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
What does that have to do with anything?
That's so funny. I didn't even catch that. That's great though.
And I don't know why I saw that, and for some reason I was like, I'm just gonna start yelling that at people when things happen. Like
I
if I
have a
get cut off,
podcast.
I'm in a competitive internship at Dean Witter.
I just thought during that, I mean, what luck though that he keeps finding the scanners again. I just thought that was funny. He lost it to the hippie girl, finds it on the bus, lost it to the time machine guy, finds the time machine. I'm just like, these things aren't going far though, at least.
Well,
Yeah,
they're staying in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. How do you this is a massive city and you keep running into the same people. The other thing that I think was funny about that is, why are they holding on to these things? I feel like if I stole one, I'd try to pull it apart a little bit, and then I'd go, I guess, a pawn shop at that time. I don't know. What I wouldn't even know what that was. Why am I lugging this thing around everywhere? I mean,
This guy was a little off his rocker. He was just trying to figure out how the time machine worked.
yeah. So that
He was on his own journey.
well, you got to give him some credit, because he had it for like a long time, and he still was trying to work with it. So he wasn't quitting. But this is where Nikki, I want to talk about how Chris, we really see his work ethic now that he's like the wheels hit the road, because him talking about he's not going to drink water because it's going to make him have to use the bathroom. He's not going to hang up the phone. He's just going to stay on and keep dialing. And then he cheated and jumped to the top of the list when he's not supposed to, but it got him a sale. Like this, you kind of, especially in this day and age where we're so distracted by social media and all this other stuff, it was very cool to see a guy go, I am so hyper focused that I'm not even going to hang up the phone. I'm just going to keep going and going and going.
So I actually have so many thoughts.
Yeah.
So I used to do telemarketing fundraising for Greenpeace. Just gotta slip that in there if anyone wants to donate to a great organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I used to do that, and even just that, where it's not even proper cold calls, is exhausting. It's exhausting to just make all these phone calls and have the same conversation over and over and get rejected over and over. And it's just, especially I can't imagine with that pressure where it's like, if I don't do well, I have nothing. Because that's basically what he did. He just went all in on this internship. Mine was more, if I don't do well, my manager is going to tell me to try harder.
Which still sucks.
Right.
It still sucks. But having that pressure is so immense. But I think it's also really interesting to see how important it is to sit down and go, I got 8 minutes a day more. Because it's not just, I don't want to go to the bathroom. It's, no, I get 8 minutes a day more because I do this tiny thing. And it's like a small example of how our tiny little efforts all build, and they keep building, and they turn into this huge success, which with that success going, kind of jumping to another thought, like I said, I have kind of but when he goes to that game and he doesn't end up making the sale, even though he did all of this above and beyond stuff, and he still failed, all of the contacts he made there and how that failure bridged his way into massive success, I think it's such an important lesson, because I think we take on all of these failures and we take on all of these roadblocks and we go, this isn't meant for me, or I just suck at life,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be. But really, it's no, there's another path. I'm just kind of turning you, right? I'm leading you to the right way. It's the universe, it's God, it's
Yeah.
what have you, but leading you to this is a failure because it primes you for success.
Yes. I always say, last name farmer. I always like the analogy. You don't get to eat when you plant the seed. You got to wait until it grows before you get anything. But you're right. There's so many things we think the failure is the end, but the failure is just a step into getting to the success. Because, and Andy, you can speak on this as well. Is you especially like you just released a movie Dead Body, and you put money into it, you put time into it, you put effort into it, and you don't make money along the way. It's all just like, this was a hard day, this was tough, this sucked, hopefully down the line it works out. But sometimes failures are just a part of the process, and that's kind of what he got here. Well, in a free football game.
Sometimes you invest in bone scanner machines and it doesn't quite work out. He's a guy that just goes all in, huh? He's the guy that like goes to Vegas and just takes everything, puts it all on red, and is like, all right, guys, I got all of my money saved for the last 2 years. Hey, do you want to put that in some other bets? Nope. Going all in. And
that sounds like an SNL skit. Like,
the
as
all-in
soon as
guy.
he gets there, put it all in. Wait, oh, I lost.
But Chris, you've been saving for years. But I just got to applaud his 49ers tickets strategy. I feel like as a sports fan, I need to start doing that to people. Oh, hey, you going to the Rams game? Oh, yeah, me too. Me too. Oh, you should come to our box. Oh, since I'm already going, yeah, I might as well go to your box instead. I need to start doing that. That was genius.
Right. I was thinking, I mean, he must have been wildly charismatic. I mean, it's Will Smith, so he obviously was, but would you invite a stranger and his son to a football game with you? Like a person who just came to your door? I think
no. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know.
Like, this goes back to the Southern naivety, because I'm just like, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
he's
sure.
family. He's in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, he's family. I bet. Cool. See you there, guy.
Well, if it's a box, maybe, because it's probably a big box, right? These rich guys probably have like 20, 30 people in there. So if anything, you could just be like, yeah, this guy's kind of weird. But he was his ride back home. So
yeah,
I don't know.
He took him.
He took a shot.
I mean,
charisma.
That'll get you places.
Yeah.
Chris is actually selling all of his machines, and things are going pretty well until those tax bills mentioned earlier in the movie start to catch up. They take the money from his account, but at least he's able to wrestle back another scanner. Unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore, and he's kicked out of the motel. They can't find a place to stay, so they sleep in a subway bathroom in what is quite the all hope is lost moment. They eventually find a homeless shelter while they keep running, studying, and trying to get by. There's a few things I want to touch on here, but Andy, I'll get to you. Something that I was thinking about this movie is, and this is going to sound like a joke, but I mean this, as he's going to these homeless shelters and he's running everywhere. We all know how we present ourselves in public, and you're in this place with all these rich folks. I was thinking about this. Maybe this is just as an adult now. He must stink, and he has to know he stinks. Like, and that's got to be tough on your self-confidence, right? Like he's got to smell terrible, right?
I would think, yeah. And I kind of noticed little Jaden. I think he wore the same thing the whole movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the most part. Yeah. I didn't think about the stink part, but yeah, I mean, you're right. I don't know what else to say, but yeah, you're
take
right.
a bath like once.
I mean, like I said, it sounds like I'm making fun, but like, it'd be tough to go to a place and be like, hey, invest all your money with my mutual fund. By the way, I smell like I haven't taken a shower in a week and I've been running everywhere. Like,
but I have charisma.
And my clothes look terrible, and but I just thought that was an interesting thing. But I do want to talk about how this bathroom scene, Nikki, and the scene that he this is, I said earlier, the scene in the basketball scene, but I think this is the gut punch scene for most people, where he's in the bathroom with his kid. And this was that scene where I was thinking, I'll let you talk about it. I know for me, I was like, if you took everything from me and I had nowhere to live, how would I get back on my feet? I don't know if I'd be able to. And you're watching this guy and he doesn't have that option because he has a kid, and just I don't know, a gut punch moment for me.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of those scenes that when I was a kid, I was like, spend a night in the subway.
Right.
That sounds, it's like a sleepover with rats. You'll be fine. But like,
Right.
as an adult watching it, especially because I have my own background with working with kids, and just, it's heart-wrenching. Like, there really isn't a proper word for it. Like, I think that obviously it's meant to be that gut punch. It's meant to be that like absolutely brokenhearted. But now as an adult watching that and like imagining, I don't know, my nephew, my niece, or any kid that I care about sleeping in the subway bathroom and having to lock the door, having to hold it shut, especially with how dangerous cities are. Because it's not, like, being more cognizant of that now. They don't really show anything like that in the movie, but being so much more cognizant of that now as an adult, where I'm like, how are they not robbed? Like, no one pulled a knife on them. There was no guns. Like, and who knows what happened in real life, but just the absolute terror that must come with that, along with feeling like a failure, along with not knowing, is my kid going to be okay? Or how is this going to hurt them as like when they get older? I cried.
Yeah, it's the total rock bottom moment too. Yeah, I remember watching this the first time around and kind of never thought it would get that far, you know. But then once it gets there, you're kind of like, oh, yeah, this is bad.
Like I said, it's a movie, so you know he's gonna get out of it. But I was trying to think of myself, if I had no one to call, and I was like literally all alone, and I had nothing except for what was like on me at the time, and I don't like, how do you get out of that? Like, I don't know, just
especially having a kid. Like, I feel like if it's myself, I'm like, I'll find a park bench, you know, I'll figure it out. If I get stabbed, so be it. But like, you got to protect a little 5-year-old.
I mean, but like, okay, like the night, like, how do you get a job? Like I said, you're gonna smell, your clothes are gonna be terrible. Like, you could see how hard it is, I guess what I'm saying, to dig yourself out of that hole once you're that far down. And as we're talking about it and thinking about the homeless shelter, Andy, to your point, I think one of the reasons this didn't feel super 80s is because so much of the 80s, to feel 80s, you would need to have money for. Like, they weren't really they weren't able to listen to like new music or buy new clothes, or you know, so like that's maybe why it didn't look 80s, is because there was really nothing that they could buy from the 80s that would scream 80s, you know. Maybe. But I do want to talk about and Nikki, you brought this up earlier, so I want you to talk about it now. We've already talked about gut punches, but I think one of the things that surprisingly just broke my little heart was when Chris Jr. had his little heart broken, and that little Captain America doll getting left behind as they drove away. That was the saddest thing in the world to me.
So sad.
So I don't know how relevant this is, but I'm gonna tell you guys a story.
Yeah.
Not the same at all, but as a child, it feels the same. So like, I had this little Esmeralda tambourine because I'm a huge, like, Hunchback of Notre Dame was my movie. Still my favorite Disney movie. Most underrated movie.
Wow.
Of the franchise. But I had this
hot take.
Yeah.
That can be. We'll talk about that in a different episode.
Yeah.
But I had this little tambourine, and I remember it, like, I was in my parents' car and I lost it because I was being a kid, I was being stupid. I had it in the wind being like, whew, and then it just fell on the highway. And I begged my parents to go back for it because it was like my favorite thing. And they wouldn't because we were on a highway and that would be dumb.
Right.
But it's so interesting how, like, universal that is for a child, right? Because like, I obviously was not in that situation. I had a lot of privilege. I had my own, like, not in that realm at all. But that's immediately what I got taken back to. And just knowing how devastated I was, and then putting it on him, because like that's your whole world as a kid. He doesn't know anything else about what's going on. Not really. He just knows what he's
Mhm.
experiencing. He doesn't know that his dad is struggling. He doesn't really understand, but he knows that this one thing that is with me everywhere, this thing that is like my rock, especially after losing his mom, is just gone. And I was just like,
Like,
and I knew he couldn't go back, but I was like, just go back for the doll.
just
Like,
go back. I know. And when Will Smith looks out the window, I was like, oh, he's gonna stop the bus, right?
I thought he was, yeah.
Nope.
No.
That's I was like, oh, I'm still devastated thinking about it. Something I liked about this part, though, something to turn it around, something I loved about this part. Andy, you know something about me is I like it when something gets mentioned early in the movie and then they bring it back.
Yeah.
They mentioned parking tickets and they mentioned tax bills.
Taxes, yeah.
And both those things circled back to rear their ugly head. They weren't just these frivolous bills that the writers put in there to make it look like he was broke. They actually played a part in the story. I felt bad for Chris, but I'll be honest, I was like, yes, it played a part in the movie.
They got him.
They
And I
got
knew they were
him.
gonna get
We're
him.
like,
One more for the tax man.
Like, so I really identify with the tax man here. Get your money.
get that bag. Get it.
Oh, that's fun. That'd be a great shirt, like tax man. Get that
The
bag.
tax man.
So we wrap things up by Chris takes the test, but he forgets to do the back of the sheet. And then he has to give his last $5 to a rich guy for a cab. Then he loses his spot at a homeless shelter. However, he sells some blood and he and deals with his son, wondering if his mom left him because of him, which was terribly sad.
Yeah.
Chris is able to get the scanner working and he sells it so they get a hotel for the night. It's his last day as an intern because the next day will be his first day of work. They offer him a job and give him his $5 that he's owed for the cab. And this is the part of the story called Happiness. Later on, Chris goes on to make his own firm and he sells it and is now very, very, very rich. Nikki, we get one last sad moment where Chris Jr. wonders why his mom left. And I would love for you to talk about that, but also just something that we've brushed a little bit on throughout this, just the connection between the father and son in this movie and their relationship and how strong that is, but also starting to deal with the fact that the mom left.
Yeah. So heavy. Because I'm very blessed in having both my parents. I haven't really gone through much in terms of losing one of them or anything like that. But I've seen how that affects people, especially kids. And I can't imagine taking on that blame as a 5-year-old, right? Because we're so egocentric as children, because we're still developing. We really only understand our perception. We really only understand what is happening to us in our world, right? When daddy's not there, he doesn't exist. But so to live in that world as a child where everything has to be about you, how do you accept your mom being gone without it being your fault? Because I mean, that's the only way your reality can make sense, is like, I had to have done something. Which is so like, I know it's fine, but that's like my reaction to everything. It's actually so sad to me.
It's the first part of the movie too, where we see Chris Jr. cry at certain moments and be unhappy. But it also kind of comes from the fact of just being a kid, where I feel like that was the first scene where you're like, there is lifelong damage done to this kid due to what they had to go through. This isn't just oh, bummer, it's cold outside today or whatever. But there's going to be traumas that he's dealing with forever. And but his dad is still there with him. Andy, to lighten the mood a little bit, I got to ask you an investment question. He sold his last scanner. Was it a good investment?
No, it was terrible. It ruined his life.
He sold them all, right? Like that's
Yay.
He had to come out with more money in the end, right?
I don't know. $250 Well, maybe in 1981 that was okay. I don't know.
You know, the
Oh,
babysitter was making 150 a kid a month. I think they should have been watching kids.
You know, to go back, I was kind of thinking that when he found out like that she was just showing movies, I'm like, oh, he should just start his own nursery. Just
Yeah,
play
just
movies
watch
all
some kids
day.
play movies.
Yeah.
Then train them how to go sell scanners.
how are you gonna say no to an adorable 5-year-old being, excuse me, you need this scanner?
Yeah, what if you need to
Like,
measure my bone density?
Yeah, there you go. He should have had Chris Jr. selling the bone scanners and that would have been fine.
Uh, this was a as we kind of wrap it up. Obviously, it's a happy ending. It's a great moral, just pursuing happiness and doing everything you want. I said in the beginning, I'll be honest, it was a little. I was bored at points. It kind of felt like it took a while to get where he had to chase down like 6 scanners. And we had like 6 scanners were stolen and refound and figured out.
They could have cut some of the bone scanner
I
plot
don't think we
line.
needed to see the story of all 45 bone scanners and how they were sold. But overall, the moral of this, I think, was great. And I think the acting performances, I don't remember this exactly, but it feels like this is the movie that everyone said, okay, Will Smith's legit. He's the guy.
Yeah, his scene. So at the end here, this was my favorite scene in the movie because of all the adversity, all the craziness he's gone through. Then it's finally like he gets his moment. And as an actor, the way he does, like a lot of people just be like, yes, I did it. You know, where he just like, you just see it right in his eyes. And he's just like, you see the tears kind of welling up a bit. And he's like, okay, like keep it together. Like, and even like as an audience member, keep it together. Cause it's like, yeah, he's getting what he's been working at. And usually, you know, there's more often than not, you work really hard to get a goal and you don't quite get it. And he did. And it's just like, I don't know, his reaction of getting the job was amazing.
Well, I think Will Smith as an actor does scenes like that so well,
Mhm.
where it's just that like I'm holding it in, but you can clearly see how much emotion there is without being overdone, without being all of that. Like, really, me?
Yeah.
did it?
That's how I would do it.
That, having that, like, it makes it hit so much harder. And it's like, again, it's like that final just, I can breathe. It's the first moment that he can stop sprinting. It's the first moment that he can stop running and actually sit down and be like, I can catch because I'm going to have stability now. And that's he does it so well. I completely agree with you. Like it's one of my favorite scenes. He does it so well.
Mm-hmm.
He is, I mean, because he do any other, he did King James, and which was incredible. Did Will Smith do any other where he played a real person movies?
Ali,
the big one too. Is he the best? Like, what's the word for it? I run a movie podcast. I don't even know the word. Like when you play a movie about someone else, an autobiography,
like a biopic,
a biopic. Is he like the best biopic guy? Because that's 3 like awesome.
Well, Chadwick was definitely like, as far as biopics guys, just
yeah, because he was like Jackie Robinson. He
oh
was
my gosh,
yeah.
I think him and
Thurgood
Will Smith,
Marshall.
like, yeah, I think him and Will Smith for me.
Yeah, like those guys
2 of just the best as far as biopics go, because it's just such a good job, and the range that they both, well, one had, but the range that they have as actors is.
I mean, Brad Pitt as Achilles though in Troy, just
very accurate.
long.
My 3 favorite biopics are Thor, Dark World. Yeah. So overall, I guess if we go into final thoughts, Nikki, you always get the last one because you're the guest. Just a great movie. I think it aged very beautifully. I think from an acting perspective, it knocks it out of the park. I think it also kind of reminds us that, like, because as was alluded to earlier, Nikki, by you, that sometimes failure is just a part of the process, and sometimes it's a good, if you're going through tough times, I think it's a good movie to probably go back and visit. And 1, it tells you that, hey, they're probably not as tough as they could be. 2, you can still make something great out of these bad times as well. And just a really, really cool movie to go back and watch again, even though it didn't quite have the explosions in it that I would have like from a movie.
Where was
but-
The Rock? If The Rock got hit
Yeah.
by the bus, the bus
Yeah,
would have
I wanted
smashed.
to see The Rock come in and start dropping one-liners and beating people up. But
From Elvis.
the guy's like, "Oh, sorry, I don't want one of those bone density scanners." Crunch, you want one now?
Smashes his head against it.
Anyways, and Andy, what were your final thoughts on this one?
By the way, Bone Scanner, not a bad WWE name. The Bone Scanner.
You're gonna go one-on-one with the bone scanner.
Yeah, I mean, just great performance by Will Smith. As we all kind of said. And yeah, I think for me, the lesson is like he went all in on the bone scanner and didn't work out well for him at all. But then he tried it again. He went all in on something else and it worked out for him. So I guess the lesson is go all in and maybe it'll work out. Maybe it won't.
Life's a gamble.
Yeah. But go for it. Maybe.
But Nikki, any final thoughts on this one?
Yeah. I mean, I really do think it's an amazing movie. I don't think it's going to be my go-to every Saturday night movie.
No.
A bit heavy.
Yeah.
But everything you're saying, like, it's great as a reminder, no matter how hard things are and no matter what age you are, right? Because a lot of times we see these movies where people are coming up in their 20s or I'm like barely 30 and now I have a life. But it's seeing someone do something incredible because he didn't just find stability. He didn't just get a job. He created this, like, was it multi-million or billion?
$1 million.
Yeah, he created this multi-million-dollar company in the 80s from nothing. And so it takes away so many limitations, which I love. I also think it's a great lesson to diversify your portfolio because as much as we're talking about going all in, I think it would have been probably a great idea if he had maybe had a side hustle along with selling his bone scanners.
Right? I was kind of think of that. I'm like, get a job at Burger King or something.
How
Tide
did he
you
end up
over.
being a good stockbroker? If he thought the bone scanners were a good investment, how is he a good? I mean, he may have made a lot of money, but how did his
I
clients do?
know.
at the end?
So who sold him on this idea? Hire that guy.
Yeah, that person was a genius.
Yeah.
The original, like, multi-level marketing scheme.
Yes,
I want to see the prequel of this.
the guy that came up with the bone scanners.
Bone scanner.
Oh, well, that does it for the movie review part. There's one last thing we do before we wrap up, Nikki, and it's just really watching Andy do his work, and that is we play the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Andy, can you connect someone to this movie to Kevin Bacon in 6 moves?
Of course. So Will Smith was in this movie. He's in Legend of Bagger Vance with Matt Damon. Matt Damon is in Ocean's 11 with Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's in Sleepers with Kevin Bacon.
Every movie, Nikki, every person somehow actually doesn't go back to Kevin Bacon. It goes back to Sleepers every time. I don't know how. Andy just loves
Or Brad
Sleepers.
Pitt. Kind of just goes back to Brad Pitt. We should just do this with Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt or Robert De Niro.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
they're both in there. But that does it for this episode. Make sure to tune in for our next episode. We go to 2007 for a Hot Rod. Then we're going to 2008 for Bronson. And then 2009, He's Just Not That Into You. So a wide range in the coming episodes. Yeah. But we are going to make sure to keep those coming. But before we go, Nikki, thank you so much for being on. Where can the world find you and all the things you're working on?
Well, my Instagram is probably a great place, and it's literally just my name because I'm the only Nikki Hru in the US. So
how do you spell Nikki Hru for our audio listeners?
Oh, brilliant. NIKKIHRU. The last part is like Henry Roger Umbrella.
Henry Roger Umbrella. That's your secret.
Another good WWE name.
And Andy Rossi, where can the world find you and all your projects?
Well, you could find me at Just Andy Rossi.
And you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. That does it for the evolution of movies. We will see you guys next week.